Hey y'all, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you might be joining us from in the world today. My name is Meg Alexander. I am, as ever, excited and really cannot wait to get started on today's event. Now, we are going to be talking today with some of the people from Contentful. We're going to be talking about AI Career Compass, Navigating Opportunities with Ninetailed by Contentful. Now, before we dive in to our event today, I do just want to go over some real quick housekeeping. So next slide, please. What you're seeing here is our code of conduct. It's a ton of legalese, but basically what it boils down to is don't be a jerk, okay? As we are interacting with our fellow attendees, networking with our speakers, just make sure that we are, as always, operating from a place of kindness and respect. If you have questions on that, you can always DM any of the Power to Fly people on the line today. We're happy to answer any questions you have. Next slide, please. All right, this is going to give you a quick primer on what you should know about participating in today's event. Now, if you are, if this will all be really helpful if today's your first event with Power to Fly. And if that's the case, then hi, welcome. We're so happy to meet you today. Now, the love is no less real for my frequent flyers. Thank you so much for joining. I love seeing your familiar names and faces and avatars in the chat. So thank you all so much for coming out today. Now, whether today is your first event or your 50th, the big thing to know about Power to Fly events is that participation is key. We want to give y'all the opportunity to participate in a couple different ways if you'd like. You are always welcome to turn on your cameras to share your smiling, maskless faces with us safely. But there is no need to be Instagram perfect, y'all. Just because I got real fancy and put in a claw clip and some dry shampoo today does not mean that you can't come to us with your kitchen table offices, your bathrobe, messy buns, does not matter. Okay. We don't stand on ceremony. We want to meet you where you are so you can learn and grow with us. Now, like I said, there is no need to be Instagram perfect. If you do have questions or if you want to participate, we very much encourage you to ask questions in the chat. Ria is chiming in, adding prompts in there. I really encourage y'all, if you want to, dive into that chat and let us know where you're calling in from. I'm always really eager to see how far our global audience spreads. I'm coming to you from Toledo, Ohio. That's land that belongs to the Fox, Kickapoo, and Potawatomi tribes in my area. And actually, as I just say that, I realize I'm not hosting from my desk in Ohio. I'm actually in Boston right now. So I'll have to do some research and figure out whose land I am on currently. But please feel free to let us know where you're joining us from and if you know whose land you're on. All right, now the other thing that I want to highlight here is that we are recording as well as live streaming to YouTube right now. Hi, YouTube. Thanks for joining. And one thing that we want y'all to know is all of this means you don't have to take notes on today's session. You don't have to worry if you miss a resource or a reference that's listed because you can always review this later on. Now, what's going to happen is in 4 to 5 business days, everybody that registered for today's session, whether you joined us or not, is going to get an email from Power to Fly with a link to where you can rewatch this recording on powertofly.com. Now, let's say that Matthias or Sergei or Raghuveer says something today that is like, oh, mind-blowing, paradigm-shifting, world-changing for you. And you don't want to wait 4 to 5 days to share this info with a friend or a coworker or a relative. You don't have to. You can always head over to our YouTube channel. Like I said, we're live streaming there now. The video is usually posted by end of business today. And there is a whole section on our YouTube channel of some of our greatest hits. So some of my favorite chats are on there. And it's a really good source of information and resources. Now, I love the YouTube channel, but I very much recommend you check us out on the website, mostly because that is where our full warehouse of resources lives. They're entirely free. And if you are here with Power to Fly today, you're probably also interested in a lot of the same missions and metrics that we are. So if you are interested in taking advantage of our full library of resources, congratulations, you already have access because you're here at today's chat. And I'm very excited and hope that y'all will share those resources with your community as well. All right, now let's go to our next slide here. We are here today to discuss Contentful. Now, whether you have heard of them before or not, I very much encourage you to take a look at their page on powertofly.com. The overview, about, and company insights tabs are really helpful if you're trying to kind of get your feet wet with a company, figure out who they are, what they do, why they're here with us. So that's a really good resource on this page. The other thing, what you're looking at right now is what their company page looks like on powertofly.com. So that QR code will lead you to Contentful page on Power to Fly. But the other thing that's really important on this page is the jobs tab. Everybody, it's a very popular one because we're all here to, up level our careers. So, if you are curious about Contentful or think you might want to apply, I very much encourage you to stick around to the end of today's event, where I'll share a little bit more with you about how ways that you can let this page, as well as Power to Fly, take some of the weight off of you in your job search and streamline that a bit. All right, so to get us started on our next slide, I'm really excited to welcome the first member of the Ninetailed by Contentful team, Matthias Hausberger. Matthias is a product manager at Ninetailed with a background in product management, software engineering, and agile project leadership. Now, he spent 6 years as a freelance software developer, focusing on back-end automation and data science. Before Ninetailed, Matthias contributed to demand forecasting and inventory solutions at Razor Group, as well as founding Sara, a startup blending art with machine learning. Matthias holds a master's in international management from CEMS, and his expertise continues to drive strategic innovation at Ninetailed. Matthias, welcome to the stage. I'm so happy to meet you. Is there anything else you'd like our audience members to know about you?
Um, yeah, I'll just introduce myself very quick. I mean, you've heard my name and everything. I'm from Austria, originally, a country I love. And just a fun fact I wanna also add to this is, even though Austria is a landlocked country, I'm still very passionate for diving. So I'm also scuba diving at any chance I get. Yeah.
Very
If
cool.
anyone's watching from Austria, I would love to know.
Yeah. Zermina's chiming in saying they're also from Austria. So I'm not sure if she's there now, but you do have friends there. So that's awesome. I scuba dived a long time ago. I absolutely loved it. What do you like about scuba diving? Do you go for like the underwater aspect? Is it the mammals or not mammals? I'm sorry, the like wildlife. What is it that you really like about diving?
Man, that's a very good question. There's a lot of aspects. I think it gives off a lot of calmness being in the water itself. I've
Mhm.
always been like a big fan of being in the water itself.
Yeah.
Um, the aquatic life is obviously amazing, but also one thing I love, especially about the scuba diving part, is it is a bit like techy. There is some like tech involved. There is some
Yeah.
yeah, some you know what I
Yeah, like
mean.
gadgets and something to like fiddle with. Yeah, no, I totally get it. That's
Exactly.
awesome. Love it. Awesome. Okay. Oh, and y'all, as we've got people chiming in here, Christina's coming dialing in for Playa del Carmen. Let's see, we've got Manchester, UK represented. We've got Dublin, we've got Berlin, Dearborn, Michigan. Ah, hi. Tons of more others in let's see, Central New Jersey, Michigan, Wisconsin, Minneapolis. Thank you all. Thank you all for chiming in here. All right, now joining Matthias on stage, we are going to be talking next to Sergei Smekhunov. Sorry, Sergei, I think I got that one all right, but I'll give it another shot for sure. Sergei is a senior software engineer with an expertise in backend engineering and microservices. At efarm.com and Indivumed Therapeutics, he focused on data processing and application development. Previously at Hermes Border Guru, he developed international shipment tracking systems and transitioned monolithic applications to microservices. Sergey holds a degree in the information engineering from Hamburg University of Applied Sciences, specializing in technologies like Node.js, Docker, and Kubernetes to create impactful software solutions. Sergey, thank you for joining us today. What else should our audience know about you?
I guess not much. You covered it pretty well. I am originally from Russia, but I'm based in the beautiful city of Hamburg. Probably my favorite city in Germany. Can definitely recommend. Although some people consider it a teeny tiny bit too posh and too snobby. But that also reflects on me, I guess. Anyway, at the free time, I'm trying to write a book. It's a shameless plug. The book is called Shish, probably will be released next year. Buy it somewhere. Uh, and yeah, that's pretty much about me.
Well, first off, you're going to have to drop the link for the book, obviously. Like we very much believe in shameless plugs here. And that's really awesome. What kind of book is it? Like what genre is the writing?
It's genre. It's an sort of an excerpt from my early 20th century encyclopedia kind of So it's a singular encyclopedic entry that is actually not an encyclopedic entry, but rather a description of something that does not exist. And it's aiming to promote more careful introduction of invasive species into the nature, and observes how humans generally did that over, hundreds of years by now. This
I
kind of
love
stuff.
this. No, I
It's
love
for
this. I mean, I
children.
find this fascinating. Very cool. Thank you, Sergey. Thank you for sharing that with us.
Mhm.
All right, joining Sergey up on stage, last but not least, we have Raghuveer Sriraman. Raghuveer is a senior data engineer. His engineering journey spans from web development, mobile development, distributed backends as well. His current areas of focus and interest are in the data engineering and machine learning spaces. He's worked across industries such as ad tech, IoT, ed tech, e-commerce, and MarTech, with a common theme of building products that people love to use. Raghuveer, thank you so much for joining us on stage. What else should our audience know about you before we dive into questions?
Hey everyone, thank you for the lovely intro. Yeah, a bit about me. I'm from India, Bangalore to be specific, but now I live in Berlin. I don't have too many fun facts. Maddie and Sergey are the ones who bring fun into Ninetailed. But maybe what I can say is I love the air, like mountains and high places and things like this, as opposed to Maddie's sea. So someday I hope I can fly a plane. That's one of my dreams in the next few years at least. So let's see how that goes. That's it.
Amazing. I very much appreciate that. When you say fly a plane, are you interested more in like larger aircraft? I used to know somebody that wanted to fly so because he really wanted to hang glide. And so he kind of got in the backwards route.
Yeah, definitely things like this. Gliders, smaller planes. I don't think I'm allowed to fly larger planes, but if I get a shot at it, then definitely I wouldn't mind. But yeah, it's something of a dream. It's one of my first dreams, and I still haven't let go. So yeah, we'll see how that goes.
That's amazing. And I very much encourage you to follow that dream. My grandfather built a plane in his garage. He was so in love with flying. So I don't recommend you go that far. I recommend you buy the plane or, one that's professionally made. But that being said, okay. All right, y'all. We've wasted enough time getting to know our speakers and letting me kind of have show off time. So let's go into our questions. Now, just as a quick reminder, audience members cannot come off mute today, but you are going to be able to ask questions if you would like. So please feel free to be active and hopping in that chat. I've got eyes on it the entire time. So if you want us to follow up on a question or expand on something that we're speaking on, please feel free to let us know in the chat. I want to make sure that the time that you all spend with Power to Fly and Contentful is useful and helpful to y'all. So asking questions that you want to know is going to be the easiest way for me to make sure that you get value out of today's event. All right, I want to start, Raghuveer, I'm going to start off with you here. Can you tell us a little bit about your start as a software engineer in the AI field?
Sure. So I think it was a bit unconventional. I started so my background was basically in, I would say, backend, and then I slowly got involved in the data side of things. Started working with more on the databases and data warehouses and things like this. And after interacting with, because I really liked data science and the math and the machine learning and things like this before the whole, before AI became super common. And then when you interact with data scientists and machine learning people, they always complain about having clean data, and that was really the introduction into the whole AI and ML space. And yeah, that was a really good segue for me because that was kind of where I was going in my career at that point in time, and that is kind of my like the way I approach to things was just to interact with people over there and ask them what they wanted. And a lot of it had to do with just making sure that data flows end to end properly, clean data, make sure that the quality is good. Yeah, and that's how it really worked out. Yeah.
Okay. Sergey, sorry, Sergey, how did this work for you? What was your start into this field?
There were a few key points, I'd say. As I studied in my university, I wrote my bachelor's work on recognition of emotions in music using machine learning, which is no longer is recognized as AI because now we sort of delegated this star title to neural networks. But still, back then that was called AI, and it actually it semi-worked. It wasn't perfect, but I was diving into statistical methods and data research from time to time in my career. When I was working for the cancer research company, we were actually quite heavy on statistics. Unsurprisingly, you cannot really serve someone 300 gigabytes of data without getting something out of that. Yes, and eventually, right now, there is a, a rising need for the AI tools. And when the need comes, you learn them. That's as easy as that. Largely, my focus is still moving large amount of data from point A to point B, but then now sometimes it gets little touches of AI.
That makes sense. That makes a ton of sense. Let's see. Matthias, I'm going to go to you for this question. Oh, no, wait, sorry, not to Matthias, my bad. I want to start with Sergey. What differentiates an AI product manager from other product managers? Or Matthias, did I have this backwards? I wrote it all down, and now I think I have it backwards. All right, sorry, Matthias. Oh, gosh. You know what, y'all?
did
I'd be
have it
dangerous.
backwards.
I'd be really dangerous if I could read my own notes. All right, so Matthias, can you dial in on us for us what differentiates AI product management from other types of product managers?
That's a good question. Honestly, I would say probably not that much. It's just more of a focus on a specific technology, right? I would say there's like you would have to always make a differentiation between the current AI hype that is around generative AI and actually working with or training machine learning models, because that takes a whole different skill of really understanding. I mean, Sergei and Raghu have talked about this already. Data is such an important topic to train models, to fine-tune them, or come up with your own machine learning or neural networks. I think that is much more specific. If it's about generative AI and if it's about incorporating the LLMs that exist today, I think it's much more about being creative and figuring out ways of how you can actually make that technology useful. I think that's an era that the whole world is currently in. We have this technology, we know it exists. It can do a lot of cool things or funny things like write poems, but we haven't 100% figured out how to make generative AI really useful in day-to-day life. And I think that level of creativity, that's the main focus point, especially for AI product managers.
No, I think that you make a really good point that that level of creativity is such a transferable skill too, as well. But I think, it really does highlight how sometimes it's not necessarily that it's something that can't be taught, but if you are a naturally curious person, that helping to fuel that in yourself is going to make it a lot easier for you to kind of like find these solutions. Would you say that'd be a fair assessment?
Definitely. I mean, I wouldn't say my job or the job of a product manager is just to come up with creative ways of introducing AI. It's much more about figuring out how to make AI useful for customers. So it's a lot about research and figuring out how you can incorporate AI in all different kinds of ways. I think together with Raghu and Sergey, over the past months at Ninetailed, we've built an AI product, and I think that was one of those products where we really tried to figure out a way how to make the whole LLM and generative AI functionality or capability useful in a day-to-day setting for our customers.
Mhm.
And that had a lot to do with like just figuring out together with customers, figuring out what they actually need or what they want, or what the current pains are or the reasons why they're currently not using ChatGPT on a daily basis.
Mhm. Okay. Sergey, I want to bring you up as well. Raghu, I'm going to bring you up as well for this next question. A lot of questions that we got, people wanted to know about coding languages. What was most important? One of the questions was, how do you feel about Python in terms of AI development? So I kind of want to go around and see what y'all think, what coding languages y'all think are most important in this field. Raghu, do you want to start us off?
Yes, of course. So I think goes without saying, Python would be the number one choice over here. It's everywhere in the data and the AI space for sure. But maybe I can also just touch upon a couple of other things. So, for example, over the last few, I would say maybe definitely over the last year, not just large language model, but small language models have started to get more and more prominence. And for things like this, C is surprisingly effective, but not too, maybe not too surprising. If you've heard of the Whisper model, I think there's a lot of effort to bring these things to your phone and kind of run these things without even the internet. So yeah, I would say learning something which is a little bit more low level, C, Rust, Zig, could be effective in the long term. It's still, I would say, a little bit early to say for sure. But if you want to get started right away, I would definitely pick Python. But maybe if you want to make something more, because the idea of having something on my phone without the internet is really cool for me. I really like it. Yeah, you can just, talk to your phone and get stuff done. And to do things like this, C is definitely a candidate, and Rust and Zig as well. Yeah, that's my thought of it.
Okay. Sergey, how do you feel? You want to chip in your 2 cents here?
I mean, Raghu said most of it. I do strongly also believe in Python for maybe slightly different reason. I believe Python is quite great for data wrangling and actually extracting proper data points from data that you eventually want to feed in your huge enigma of the language model, or maybe not language model, maybe something else you have. So any language that allows you for fast prototyping and fast data processing, which Python is one among the best ones. That's why it's widely used in scientific communities. Is good, is great. Low level is even better if you want to actually make some and enhance some. But as I am mostly the advanced user and not much of a maker, so we have slightly different perspectives with Raghu. Yeah, I would go probably with Python if you just want to play around with a bunch of different models. People tend to stick their things into Python and expose their libraries in the Python community. Additionally, I would second what Raghu said. Tooling is rapidly expanding. There are new and new smaller models, more specialized models, which is much more important. Sometimes you don't want your thing to be big. You just want it to be the right tool. So first pick the tooling, then pick the language.
Matthias, how do you feel about this?
I was just gonna say if I could add a few words as well. I did also start with Python, getting into machine learning, so I can only second that. But like looking at this from a different perspective, it might not just be about the language that you want to learn. It might be like it should much more be about the use case that you're trying to solve or trying to get into. And I think the reason why Python sticks out is not necessarily because it's the best language for AI or machine learning, but it's the language that is used by far the most in recent years to explain specific models or to explain how AI and machine learning works. So I think if you're really trying to get into the field of AI that is beyond just like triggering an API call to a large language model, then the majority of the tutorials you're going to see they're going to be around Python, and that is then a good use case. Like whether you're going to use that in like at work, whether like Python is going to be the language that you need for a specific job is maybe a different question than yeah, what you're trying to learn after all.
Okay, yeah, that makes a ton of sense. Raghu, go ahead and chime in, y'all. You're welcome to interrupt me at any point, please.
Yeah, so as we were having this conversation, a couple of other thoughts came into mind. I think I missed adding JavaScript because do remember not too long ago, Chrome, I think, is starting to have like this inbuilt AI in their browser, and they have a JavaScript SDK. Now that I think about it, LangFuse has got a TypeScript SDK. Sergey, correct me if I'm wrong. And I remember things like TensorFlow.js, for example, a few years ago. That's one of the first JavaScript-based neural network things. So yeah, I wouldn't ignore JavaScript, TypeScript as well because you can run stuff on the browser and the browser's everywhere. So yeah, definitely something to consider.
right, excellent. Let's see, we are getting some questions in the chat. So this one came from Ulku and said, maybe we'll go to Matthias first, or sorry, Matthias first on this one. Could you provide some examples of how you use LLMs or generative AI to support customers? Additionally, how do customers typically approach your solutions when you mention that you aim to solve their challenges using AI? Is it easy to convince them, or do they trust these solutions readily? This is a big question. So to the extent that you can answer for us, let's start off with the first part. Could you give us some examples of how you use LLMs or the generative AI to support customers?
I think those two are questions that we can talk hours about, actually. The way that we implemented AI into the Ninetailed product was along the lines of we looked at what stops people from using a normal ChatGPT on a daily basis, for example, or what stops them to use AI to be creative. Because one thing that AI can also do is not necessarily replace humans in their creativity, but help them to come up with some interesting concepts or ideas that you can then expand on. One of the reasons that we found as like with our customers is you don't want to all the time switch between the different tools that you're using and then give it a ton of context, or having to give it a ton of context just to provide a good response. So for example, what we're doing at Ninetailed basically is we're helping businesses to personalize their content. In order to do that, you need to come up with some examples of what do you want to personalize on my site, what do I want to test or experiment with on my site, and what contents do I want to use to experiment with it. And all of this heavily depends on the content that you already have, and it depends on your business. It depends on all the context around it. So two things that we focused on was, one, how can we provide an LLM all the context it needs so that our customer doesn't have to copy paste stuff into like a ChatGPT and then get the response back from it. But instead have an AI that already has all of the context, so you don't need to do the copy pasting, and the barrier to entry for using AI in a daily context is much easier. And the second thing that we also focused on right now is you still have a very, very slow conversation with something like ChatGPT. There's voice models now which are also being adopted slowly, but it's still a very, very slow process of you type in to chat what you want it to do, you then like adapt your language, you basically have a full-on conversation with ChatGPT, which takes ages. And what you see with customers is that before they start using AI at all, they would rather just do the stuff themselves or come up with things themselves, because it just takes too much time. So what Ninetailed did in the product is basically try to take all of that effort even before, like, or produce outputs that might be relevant even before the customer even touches AI. So we incorporate AI in a way that it doesn't, I mean, we label it AI, obviously. We know like we need to kind of label it. And I guess that's a good gateway to the second question. But we labeled that it is a suggestion generated by AI, but the suggestion itself is already there. All you need to do is just review it and click create, and your A/B test is running. So that, like, just lowering that barrier to entry is exactly what we figured was the best way to go about.
I like that. Okay. Do you think in a lot of the feedback you're getting, do you think people are ready, are ready to accept AI or to start integrating? Or do you think that initial fear or unfamiliarity is lessening?
It's definitely a process for customers. So I think with all of the AI tools, like you're not seeing the adoption that you would like to see with some of those products. And that's, I think, very natural, because people just need to get used to the way of continuously using it and also trusting it. That's one thing we made sure in our product as well, is that you don't necessarily need to trust anything. There's always still a way to review review the output of it before anything goes live, before any decision is made. So you will always have a human review before you like publish experiences, for example, on your content or your site. One thing that I think also Contentful, for example, was very concerned about, or is still concerned about, is enterprises or customers or also individual end users. They're scared of giving LLMs a lot of information for various reasons. You don't want your like company data to be trained, or like to be used to be like to train some OpenAI LLM, for example, or you don't want to give it all that information to then be maybe used in some very weird way that you didn't expect it. And that's why it's a very big topic, that transparency and traceability of what AI does, and also being able to intercept it at the right time is a very big topic at Contentful.
Oh yeah, of course. Okay, we had another couple questions coming in from the chat, so apologies, y'all, for catching me on the spot here. Tina Marie Wilkin had asked, where should I focus on learning AI for data analytics purposes and supporting cross-functional teams? Does anybody have a suggestion for her, or am I barking up the wrong tree asking this?
Maybe I can take a stab at that. I don't have something too concrete because
That's okay.
I'm seeing AI definitely being used in data analytics, but this is more on you type a query in natural language and then you get some sort of output. There are some really cool things that are happening. I've seen demos of LLMs just crunch financial information, the details of companies and kind of get the output that you want. So I think stuff is still being, I would say, they're working out the bugs in some sense, because the danger is that, like, if you get wrong information, you base your decisions on wrong information. So I wouldn't say it's there yet. It's still something that right now I would say that an organization has to tune the way they ask the query, and then with the response, and then make it kind of customized for their company and the data that they have. So yeah, I don't think that was too helpful. I'm a bit on the fear side of things, on this side of things. I can see the value, but I would just wait for a bit more until stuff gets figured out.
Okay.
Can I just
Yeah.
add to this that maybe
Please,
it's the same maybe it's the same concept as what I was saying with the creative part. It's not AI, is it, or those LLMs, on the job of those isn't necessarily to replace the human in the output in essence, but to point you in the right direction. So I think one thing that Raghu said, like that's very true, is if you give it a ton of data or a ton of context, or a transcription of long meetings, I think what AI is good at is pointing you at the right direction, not necessarily at creating a good summary or showing you the completely correct data, but making assumptions that you can then take to dive deeper into.
Yeah, I mean, granted, I'm a dinosaur at this point, but I remember when the internet was the new thing, and it was like, oh, how are we going to do anything with this and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, it's the same. I remember having like Encyclopedia Britannica, and it was like, it's the same thing. It's not that it's going to replace the need to do research. It replaces where you're starting from. It gives you a little bit more to kind of go on, which I think is really important when we're talking about AI, because like calling it AI is disingenuous, right? We're talking about logic gates. It's not actually, artificial intelligence. So I think that's where you start to get people thinking like, oh, Skynet and blah, blah. And it's like, no, that's not really what we're talking about here. What we're talking about is a better way to sift through the information we already have. Okay, Dr. Steven Salaka chimed in the chat and had a question. This person wants to know, how can we convince businesses to use RAGs rather than trying to create their own LLM for fine tuning? Sergey, I'm calling on you. The face was amazing.
Guess, I mean, how to convince business to do a thing is a huge question in our lives.
Buy it to the money. End of sentence.
But largely it's a question of investment, right? I mean, if it is something small, when it's a tool, you just convince your manager, immediate manager, like, let's have a little POC build. Let's just, with RAGs and fine tuning, I think you would need a bit more than that. So eventually, just the level of stakeholder you need to convince is a bit higher. But with here, Raghu, I would maybe need your help to estimate, like, but it also depends on the scale these people are operating. But I believe within a couple of months and within like maybe three, 4 people, you can build a decent proof of concept that can already provide some sort of an output. And that should be enough for a lot of businesses to at least consider pushing more resources in this direction. And all of that is purely theoretical because size of the business, how conservative it is, and etc. is convincing. But I don't think there is any particular difference between this and any other new exciting tooling.
Yeah, and I can just add a bit. It's pretty much what Sergey said. I think I would guess that the primary decision would be cost, our time, like whether it's money or time, because fine-tuning jobs take time and they also cost money. Whereas RAG is, I would not say simpler, but you can definitely make stuff happen a little faster. So yeah, if you were to choose one versus the other, I would just, try to make something that like a proof of concept out of RAG, get some value out of it. And then if you want to also add fine tuning and then see if there is actually like a difference to the end result, then yeah, that you could probably do both. But if I were to pick one or the other, get something quickly done, get something cheap, I would definitely say, let's go with RAG. Let's see if things improve. And then you can invest more time and money into this thing.
Excellent. Okay, thanks, guys. All right, let's move into kind of skill development territory. One of the things that I hear a ton on these chats is how important it is to have project-based learning experiences. It's like things that you can talk about of like ways that you have implemented these skills. Where does one go to get project-based learning experiences if you're not already in a position of receiving such projects? Raghu, you want to start us off here?
Yep. Have a few ideas. I think at least one of my former mentors always used to say, just, get your hands dirty and build things. Like the most amount of learning happens, especially for like programmers, is when you have to go through the pain of debugging, when things break, and then you're like figuring out what's going on here. That's when things really like that's when the learning happens. So I would just say build things that are useful for you. If you feel like, hey, I think AI would be helpful here, or just look at an app that already exists maybe and just try replicating it. That alone would teach you quite a bit. Hackathons are another really nice way. There are so many AI hackathons now, so I would say and the community is really friendly and welcoming. So yeah, I went to one just like a month ago, and I honestly don't know much about AI. I'm not like super expert. There were people who are really, really good who showed up there, and just in like 2 days of just talking to them and working with them, you just learn a lot. So I think that's a really good way of learning stuff. So yeah, I would say, and there are so many other build in public communities and the builder communities. I would say on Reddit and Twitter for sure. Yeah, I would say just hang around with people who are, way ahead of you, and then and they're definitely welcoming and helpful, and you just pick up things by just getting your hands dirty and building something. Even if it's no one's going to use it, it doesn't matter. You're just trying to like figure stuff out. So that's what I would say.
Okay. Sergey, you want to add anything or rebut? No? Matthias, how about you?
I maybe have a few words. Again, I guess it depends on like whether you're trying to get into like RAGs or fine tuning or building your own neural networks versus using Gen AI and these large language models. I guess Raghu is more as like made the perfect point for anything that's more specialized with neural networks. When it comes to generative AI and when it comes to these large language models, I think even though it's been around for 2 years now, it's a very uncharted territory and it's very, very qualitative. So if you play around with these models, and that really just means like playing around with ChatGPT and figuring out what it can do and what it cannot do, I think there's a a ton of really cool blog posts, for example, that can figure out all different kinds of ways of how you can make it useful, or also different ways of how you can, from an architectural, if you go into more technical, like take a technical aspect of it, from an architectural perspective, how you could handle a lot of data or a lot of context, or how you can make a ChatGPT really useful in a day-to-day context. Yeah, I think there's a lot to explore. So if you don't just want to follow some tutorials and that's all you do, if you just explore yourself and then you have a project or you have some summary that you just publish somewhere in some blog post, I think that's also a very valid use case. I mean, there's official like prompt engineering jobs out there nowadays, so maybe that's something for you.
I like that. Prompt engineering. Okay. In that same field, you talked about, kind of incorporating AI and playing around with it. Do you have any suggestions on how people can incorporate AI into their workflow already?
Many. I mean, for coding,
Sergey's like, where are we starting?
there's one very obvious one that I think we're all using. That's Copilot. It's a very good tool that helps you day to day. I think helps me probably more than you guys because I'm not a daily programmer. But GitHub Copilot is great for coding. One thing that I personally love, I don't know if I'm allowed to like plug any tools here, but I'm a big fan of Raycast, which is like a macOS extension that also has an AI add-on. And what that allows you to do is not just chat with it, but also have pre-existing prompts that can take specific context. So I'm using that to, for example, summarize meetings. I'm using that to give me advice as a product manager. For example, I have a specific prompt or a predefined prompt, giving the AI some context about who I am, what I do, and that it should just pretend to be my product managing expert. And then it just helps me solve these things in a much easier way than just opening up a ChatGPT. As said, like even for yourself, the rule always persists. Try to lower the barrier of entry as much as possible.
I mean, it kind of brings me to the point of mind of thinking like when Instagram first came out and nobody was really scared of Instagram, everybody just sort of played around on it. And we all started taking terrible photos of our food. And we were like, look, it's the food that I ate. And now you look, 15, 20 years down the line. And I mean, I've certainly gotten way better at photo editing than I was 10 years ago. So I think, yes, for me, this is how I've been thinking of AI in terms of as a what to do other things, not as like something that's going to do the things for me. So yeah, I think you're right. Like that low barrier of entry is huge. And I mean, mindset goes massively into that as well.
And if you maybe just
Oh, go ahead,
one
please.
thing. If you really want to like get more into the field of AI, just set aside some money to spend for all these different AI tools. Try them. I think at Contentful, shameless plug again, but at Contentful we're fortunate to be able to expense some of these productivity tools or AI tools. So we can make use of Copilot or Raycast AI or Cursor or whatever you're into. But spending these 20 euros or $20 or whatever the subscription is probably very useful if you're really trying to get more into the field of AI.
Yep. If I can just add, just double down on what Maddie just said. I was going to mention Cursor. So Cursor and Bolt.new are two incredible applications of AI. I think was it Sam Altman who said the day isn't far where there's a single man company with $1 billion, something like this, a single person company. So yeah, after using Cursor and Bolt, I could see what he was talking about. It's such a productivity boost that you cannot even describe it. you can just they do so much without even knowing the language. Like, to just give an example, a few weeks ago, I created just a sample Flutter app using Cursor, and I don't know Flutter. I don't know anything about Flutter. It was just talking to the LLM, and it did every single thing. And I just installed it on the phone, and things work. So, and when you talk to other people who use this seriously, I think as a sidetrack, I think LangChain or LangFuse, they mentioned that they use Cursor for their production applications. So it's actually being used in the real world. So I would highly suggest you check out Cursor or Bolt, because you can, if you want to build something, and just spend some time going through YouTube and just figuring how to use this, because once you do, you can build like a full-fledged, like a decent app in maybe, a few hours really. I don't know how it's going to be for really large projects, but if you want to get started, definitely something you can check out.
Okay, excellent. All right, last 15 minutes. So we're gonna get to some more questions. If you have a question that you wanted us to ask, please feel free to keep submitting. We do have we've got like 3 more audience questions to go. So if you do have questions, please feel free to chime in. We would love to take a stab at them. All right, Amy J wrote in saying, QA engineer here. What skills could I practice to be of the most value to my developer colleagues working on AI projects? I like the proactivity here, Amy. That's like really nice to be like, okay, how do I make this a little bit easier? Raghuveer, you had the thinking face on.
Sorry, I was just trying to reply to one of the comments which asked for.
No worries. Matthias, what you got?
So again, what was the question again? I was also
Okay.
replying.
The person
We were all trying to reply to this comment.
I know. I could see it going across everyone's face. Okay, so Amy wrote in saying they are a QA engineer. What skills could they practice to be of the most value to developer colleagues who are working on AI projects?
That's a very good question.
That's a tough one.
That's pretty hardcore, to be honest. Testing AI as a QA engineer is not an easy task. Obviously, it doesn't have a proper state being sort of generated on the fly, and also it costs money, sweet money. One of the solutions we are currently that's currently in the making is that we do want to spend some money on the testing, but we are carefully trying to allocate the amount of data we need to push through our system. So it is A, proving that the system is somehow functional, but B, does not completely bankrupt us if someone just runs it 10,000 times.
Yeah.
So as a QA engineer, I think getting to understand where this balance lies for your system, and if you can actually, so you like which part of your system actually processes data with AI, and how much does it cost in whatever units you are expanding it, and if it is possible to automate it somehow without overloading, that would be the first and foremost. So cost awareness, I would say, but Matty, Raghu, maybe you have something to add.
I think you just hit the nail on the head. I think
Yeah, pretty much. Because this is a hard one. I'm still wondering, because I don't want to make guesses over here, because my expertise in the QA side of things is not too familiar. But maybe if I could just add a lot of the QA stuff, if I were to guess, it would probably be around something close to fine tuning, or something close to the RLHF, so reinforcement learning with human feedback. Just looking at, this is the input and this is the output that we need, assuming you're using LLMs, of course. And tuning on something like this would be where I would go. But other than that, I don't think I have too many helpful details.
That maybe brought me to one more point. One thing that we tried that is super difficult is putting out your first LLM or your first AI product is easy. The second one that's supposedly improving the first one is so much harder, because now you need to have a case of trying to prove that this one actually performs better than the other one. And LLMs, for example, they hire like thousands of people to flag the performance of these different models. That's not something that we historically, at least at Ninetailed, didn't have the resources to. We'll see. Let's see about Contentful of whether they have the resources to do that. But understand, like, figuring out some ways of measuring how the models perform is extremely difficult.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think that's a challenge that we all need to kind of solve at some point.
All right, excellent. Okay. Okay. A lot of people are curious about how the career landscape looks. And there's a lot of curiosity about, what sectors or what industries might benefit or be disrupted by AI. From your view, what are you seeing, or what do you think is going to be the areas where there's going to be as much, benefit or disruption?
I guess I'll go for it. So the tools that we have recommended there, you can look at the tools we recommended, right?
Yeah.
Most of them, none of them require actual 100% accuracy. They're prototyping tools. They're tools that require a review of a human, whatever they produce. So largely, I believe that things that allow for mistakes are. We need to look at the places when we allow for mistakes, and we still say that we need to give the human the decisive move before it all goes to live. For the same reason, there are some, I believe, legal issues with using AI assistants when talking to customers and making contracts, because you can't convince AI to give you some freebies, and which is not really not supposed to get. But I think AI assistance is the real thing. That there are still so many. I don't know how to use Photoshop. I will be first to admit. Never learned, and I'm just waiting, and honestly, until there will be a good AI assistant for Photoshop. They'll be like, just make this picture shinier, and it will do exactly that.
Make this look less weird.
Yeah, like I meant less weird, but in more like Western way, or less weird, but like in Russian.
Yes. Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, because there's going to be different ideals for all of this for sure. Yeah.
Yes.
There was a
So
project like that a couple years ago. It was, I'm sure it happens every so often, but people like sent out model photos to Photoshop people in different countries, and was just like, make this person more beautiful, make it prettier, and to kind of see where the different like cultural beauty standards were was kind of interesting. So like, I can't wait to see the sort of ripple outward effect that, that same sort of effect has, depending on where this is being used and for what.
So yeah, that's where I see market developing further, basically making sure that our interaction with the world is as easy as it gets.
Yeah, I like it. Okay, we have a ton of people that had questions about how, mostly coming from a place of they don't have an AI or a technical background, but they want to move into the field. And so they want to know, like, if there's things that they should do or upskill. So if somebody is coming into the AI space, but without a technical background, is there any place you recommend them to start, or that would be, a good lead in, if they're not coming to it from a technical perspective, but they're trying to understand it?
Are we talking about like getting into it from a career perspective or getting into it from a skill perspective? Yeah, I think you're muted.
Sorry, it sounds like a career perspective. We actually got this from a couple different people. This person said, I'm looking to move into a sales role at a company whose services are AI dependent. Is there a certification you'd recommend for someone who's not technical? So let's talk about this. Yeah, if you're moving from non-technical, non-AI into a field where you are going to be involved in this, where do you recommend people kind of like start ground zero baseline?
I have an opinion on this for like on a general basis. And that is like I have a little secret to tell you guys. That is, every company is currently evaluating on how they can incorporate AI into their product. Every company is trying, like a lot of companies are trying to become an AI company. So if you want to get into the field of AI, it might not be the easiest choice from a demand perspective to get into a company that is clearly labeled AI or that is AI itself. So like getting into something like OpenAI right now is probably close to impossible for the majority of people. We would all love to work on these exciting models and be part of that team that creates history right now. But I think a much easier or more approachable way of getting into AI is to find companies that have you could, or at least already see they have some kind of product, or that you could anticipate that they're probably evaluating of getting into the field of AI. And sooner or later, there will be a feature coming. One example, I'm not, there's 100 examples, but Miro or Atlassian or Jira, all these products, they're all, in essence, they're not AI, but they all have their own AI products or capabilities now. And being in a company that develops something with AI, I think is going to be much easier for you to also maybe get into that team or be closer to the AI product. Specific to like the sales role, of getting into or applying for companies that are AI specific or AI dependent. I don't know of any certification, but one thing, and I'm very biased coming from a product perspective, but one thing I can recommend is to really try to understand what AI can do and what it can do well and what can AI not do, because this differentiation is a make or break of making false promises or actually selling AI the right way. And I think that's
There it
probably
is.
going to be valued by
Yeah.
wherever you're hiring for or want to be hired by.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, and this is also something that like I host a ton of chats like this around interviewing and job application prep and this kind of stuff. And this is a very good example of an area where you can then say like, hey, this is, I know that I don't have a lot of experience in this industry, but I'm really curious about what, where this product could go. Here's the research that I've done. Here's what I've seen your company change. And here's what I think is really cool. Like you don't have to have necessarily the experience in these fields, but you should demonstrate the aptitude or the curiosity for it to help paint that picture of it's okay that I don't already have this because I am interested. This is a subject matter that matters to me, which is entirely different from somebody that's like, well, I guess I'll sell AI now, but I don't know what it is. You know what I mean? Like it's a better look, I guess. Okay, 2 minutes left. I ran us way close to time because we had such great questions today. But Sergei, Matthias, and Raghuveer, thank you all so much for taking an hour plus out of your day today for us. We really appreciate all the prep work that goes into this as well. So thank you to each of you for sharing your expertise and your time with us today. It is very much appreciated. All right, y'all, as we go on, I know Ria is sharing links in the chat with y'all, so you can link up with some of our speakers today. The other thing that I want to highlight for y'all is that company page on powertofly.com. I did say that I was going to show y'all or kind of give y'all some tips here. So let me get this pulled up. There we go. Share. Okay. All right. So the big thing that I wanted y'all to see here with this is on this page, you're going to see this big button right here, this big pink button that says follow. Okay, now every company that has a page on powertofly.com has this. Not every company, if you're not seeing it, it's because you're not logged into the page. The big thing that I want to highlight here is the follow network. It's not very well known thing on our website, and I think it really helps out. If you click that button and you follow Contentful on Power to Fly, what it's going to do is it's going to allow Power to Fly to tell Contentful that you're interested in working with them even before you fill out an application. So it's a really great option if you are actively job seeking, Contentful interests you as an employer, and you are curious, but don't see a role right this second that's like perfect for you to apply to. All right. So I very much recommend that you use the button in that way. The other thing that it does is by tapping that button, Power to Fly is going to tell you when Contentful posts new roles. So that way you don't have to worry if you didn't hear that there was a role posted with them a couple weeks ago because you weren't checking job boards at that point. You don't have to worry about it. So anything that Power to Fly can do to kind of take some weight off of you in your job search is stuff we want to do for you. So I very much recommend that you tap that follow button on any and all companies that interest you on powertofly.com. Even if you're not actively job seeking, it also gives you a really great short list of companies to come back to. Companies like Contentful, who really walk the walk and talk the talk when it comes to DEIB issues, as well as leading us in the charge when it comes to AI as well. So whether you've taken a look at their page yet or not, I very much recommend you do. That is going to bring us to the end of today's event, though. So I just want to say a massive thank you to all of our audience members as well. Y'all, these events don't exist without you. I love that you come to these events because it means I have a job, but I even more love that you come to these events because you just took 60 minutes out of your day to do something good for yourself and your career, okay? That is not easy in this day and age. It's not generally a fun thing. So whether you're a little treat person or not, listen to Meg, give yourself the gold star, cookie, pat on the back, whatever is your moment of zen in the hellscape of adulting. But thank you so much for joining us. Also, major shout out to all of the Power to Fly people behind the scenes, as well as the behind the scenes Contentful team that came together to make this all possible. Thank you all for allowing us to sit up here and look so good. Now, if this was your first event with Power to Fly, I sincerely hope it will not be your last. I hope you go out there and have the day, week, or weekend that you deserve, and that it won't be long before you find your way back to us. Have a nice night, y'all. Bye.